Here, here.
I have a few things to say.
Should we sit down?
We have mats coming out there, so we appear magically from the grass and the mats in. The first picture I took on this camera is dated October 15, 2005, and it's a picture of Jacob and Michelle. And I've never taken it off, and except it just disappeared because the camera turned off. But I've taken many, many pictures since, and I've erased many of them, but for some reason I just always kept this picture on here. And it's still there, and when I took it, obviously, I asked Jacob today when they met, or when they first went out, and it was about just a month before this, in September of 2005. Isn't that what we established? So this was only a month into the relationship, so they didn't know that they would end up here today, but something, I don't know why, I just said, hey, let me take your picture. It's really a great picture, so if anybody wants to see it, you can see it later. So anyway, sometime later, in fact, a year later from when they met, Jacob called me. It was your first anniversary of your first date, I think, and he said, Dad, they were living in Brooklyn by this time, so he had made some progress from the picture time. And he said, I want to take Michelle out to eat for the first anniversary of our first date. I mean, it was your first date. Where shall I go? Now, we hadn't lived in New York for 13 years since then. And I couldn't, so he said, where shall I take her? I said, I don't know. And then I remembered a place in Brooklyn, because they were living in Brooklyn, but I'd never been there, but I'd always wanted to go, called Aldi La. And so I said, why don't you go to Aldi La? The thing I know about it is they don't take reservations. So you don't actually have to worry about reservations, you just have to go there. So after many conversations, they went to Aldi La, and I think it was a Wednesday night, and the phone rang here about 9:45, and Jacob said, Dad, he said, we just got out of Aldi La. He said, it was incredible. He said, you won't believe this meal. Let me tell you about this meal. He said, Michelle had this appetizer, and I had this appetizer. And he said, and Michelle had this main course. And I know he said, and I had rabbit. No, I'm sorry, then they had a pasta before the main course. They had pasta. Then he said, I had it, and she had this, and I had a rabbit. He said, and then the desserts. He said, the desserts were incredible. She had this for dessert, I had that for dessert, and then I asked her to marry me. He said, what do you think? He said, I'm in the street. Outside the restaurant. I said, that's great, Jacob. What are you going to do? He said, I don't know. Which brings us to here, but I'm not done. I had two images of Jacob and of me when he was young. When he was very little, we used to watch hockey games together. Some of you will be surprised that he ever watched hockey games, but I would watch the game propped up in bed, and he would lie between my legs, and we would watch the whole game, the Rangers games. And in fact, we actually went to a Rangers game, and he got a hockey puck. The guy, he was the youngest kid at the game, and a hockey puck came out. Right? Did the hockey puck come out? Or, and one of the security guys came up and handed Jacob the hockey. Anyway, so I used to hold him between my legs, and we would watch the game for 2.5 to 3 hours. And another image I have that's somewhat similar in a certain way is that when we used to go visit my mother in Springfield, Massachusetts, after a while we'd want to escape. Those who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. And I'd say, let's go to the wine store. So we get in the car, just Jacob and I, and we drive to Town and Country Wine on Riverdale Road in West Springfield, Massachusetts. And we would get out of the car, and there would be these shopping carts. And Jacob would say, put me in the cart. So I put Jacob in the cart, and we would go into the wine store, but we would go there in the most circuitous way because I would have to run through the entire parking lot with Jacob in the cart. And he would laugh like a maniac. And we would go back and forth as I was running, and he would laugh and laugh and laugh until we finally got in. And we get into the thing, he says, "Where's John?" John was the manager of the wine store. Jacob knew. Remember John? We used to see again. You probably don't remember John. Anyway, I was thinking about these things where Jacob was in a kind of an enclosure, sitting between my legs while we were watching the game, and then sitting in the cart. And I was thinking about how somehow they were both safe places for him, and that this whole new wedding and marriage and something is a new enclosure for him, and that he's now passed from that enclosure and those things to this marriage and this new kind of security and safety. So, and I have one more thing that I wanted to read, which is another metaphor. I really got a kick out of this. Years ago, when I was doing some research on music stuff for something I was writing, I found a letter from Hector Berlioz, 19th century composer, to his son. And this is about his son going off to sea. But I kept this, because I never used this thing anywhere, but I kept this. It was kind of this became a metaphor for Jacob now going off to another sea. And so Hector writes to his kid. He says, "You keep telling me you want to be a sailor. You must want pretty badly to leave me behind. Because once you are at sea, God knows when I shall see you. If I were free and independent, I should leave with you, and we would seek our fortunes in India or elsewhere. But even to travel takes means, and my career as a composer keeps me in France. I would have to give it up if I left the old world for the new. I write to you as a grown boy," talking about his son. "You will think all this over and you will understand, for no matter what happens, I shall always be your best friend, the only one entirely devoted to you and full of unchangeable affection for you. I know you love me and that you will make up to me for everything. Tell me again about your teeth. Have they been thoroughly cleaned? Farewell, dear child. I kiss you with all my soul."